get is, what do we do now? Right?
Right.
How do we fix it? Right. And if we had been teaching the right things for a very long time, we would know what to do. And that's an indication of where the problem is. We don't know what to do. And interestingly enough, our framers had that same problem. And that's why Samuel Adams and Dr. James Warren and James Otis Jr. started the Committees of Correspondence to spread this education throughout the colonies on what their liberty was, on the liberty that had been guaranteed by the sacrifices of their fathers and by the gift of God Himself. And so we have got to make sure that we continue to teach people that there's something worth fighting for, that they know what they're fighting for. Otherwise, we won't even know what to do or how to engage in a fight.
So
I want to encourage people to get with educational, resources. Go to the 10th Amendment Center.com. Go to the Citizens for Self-Governance. Go to the people who are the Institute on the Constitution. These places where people are trying and sacrificing daily to bring us the education that we need, and because it's out there. I mean, we look at people like Tom Woods, and we look at people who have been fighting for this for so very long, and we've got to get educated so we can join hands with them in the fight, because they're weary, they're absolutely weary.
And we need to rally at rallying points that we can have more voice at. This idea that, hey, let's fix our hopelessly broken federal government. We have our counties, we have our states. The people of Harney County have got a great education because of what the Patriots did in Oregon, and people all over America are seeing that, hey, wait a minute, the people have a voice, the people own their rights. God gave them to them. The people are the authority. And if people would start, spend less time on football and beer and Cheetos, less time sending their kids into public indoctrination systems while not spending time with them and teaching them truth and liberty and righteousness, we need that spirit, that spark of liberty in people's hearts, and we need them to take action on a local level.
Yeah. We have to keep fighting. We just have to keep fighting. And, we keep moving, and that's what we do. We keep fighting for our children.
Yes. So, okay. Look, there's going to need to be fundraisers for, I know we have one out there for Ammon, but for all the Patriots, we need to remember on the outside that we support our own, because we have a court system that's just as lawless in most ways as the federal government, but the people do still have a voice. They still have authority. People need to understand that the jury doesn't have to obey the judge. The jury doesn't have to obey the court. The jury their duty is to conscience alone. Their duty is not to follow the letter of corrupt legislation, but the principles of liberty.
Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of heading off in the direction.
Right.
You know what, Gavin? I've got to come down.
Okay.
I've got to go. But I just, again, I want to thank God, and I want to thank all the people that were supporting me in the background.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
And the people that were praying, and
there was lots of those.
Just, praise God, right?
That's right.
He's still in control.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to hang on here a little longer, and hopefully we'll get an update from Michelle before we close this off. I don't know, maybe I'll read them the declaration or something, but.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds great.
All right.
God bless.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, folks. So, well, you know what? Praise the Lord. We've got a lot of trolls out there. We've got a lot of people saying, "Oh, we need professional negotiators," or this is about more background checks. The media is going to spin this any way that they want to, but the message hasn't changed. You got a young man who's under duress by a government who has been terrorizing its people, and it's no wonder that he's afraid. It's no wonder that people are upset. And so the government caused this in every facet. The government is terrorizing the people of America. And the people of America can stand on liberty. They can stand on Christ. They can stand on our God-given rights. And they can start loving their neighbor. So, Nathan, do we know if we have, have we heard from Michelle? Do we have any status updates on that front?
I have not heard from Michelle. I believe it's 25 minutes before they have reliable phone service.
Okay, so
I can try to call.
let's, I've got the declaration here. So I'm going to read this. Hopefully Michelle will call in a minute. Rather than me just talking, let's go back to the foundation. Let's go to before the Constitution and see the principles that we came from. Let's talk about the law just real quick. And this won't take long. But here's the reason. On July 4th, 1776, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of governments becomes destructive to those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms which they are accustomed. But when the long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right and it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient suffering of these colonies. And such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter the former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an obsolete tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless these people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such disillusions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent and of a superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign with our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfect scarcity, paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He hath constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an indistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people, nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, peace, and friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And that's the foundation of America. And that's what we have to return to. Nathan, did we hear from somebody?
Yes, this is Nathan Syme. I just heard from Michelle Fiore, who was on the ground helping with the negotiations. Everyone is safe. The FBI has taken them into custody, but they were not, they were not hostile in their abuse. They were gentle. There's not so much as a scratch on anyone, and they're headed to Portland.